Hello kiddos, welcome back. We're ready to listen to chapter 6 called The Tooth Fairy. A few minutes later, Dr. Floss came back into the room. She wasn't dressed up like Captain Plaque anymore. I'd like to introduce you to a special guest who is going to read you a story, she told us. Please give a warm welcome to my good friend, the Tooth Fairy. Some big lady came dancing into the room. She was wearing a yellow tutu, wings, high heels, and a crown on top of her long blonde hair. In her hand was a magic wand with a star at the end of it. Well, I thought she was a lady anyway. She looked a lot like our principal, Mr. Klutz, but he has no hair at all. I mean, none. Mr. Klutz would look good with long blonde hair. "Hi, boys and girls," the Tooth Fairy said. The Tooth Fairy sounded a lot like Mr. Klutz, too. "You have a pretty low voice for a fairy," I said. "Are you sure you're not Mr. Klutz in disguise?" "Klutz?" said the Tooth Fairy, adjusting her hair. "Never heard of him. I'm the Tooth Fairy." "I'm so glad you could join us on National Dessert Day," said Dr. Floss. "Please tell the kids what you do." "Well," said the Tooth Fairy, "when a kid loses one of their baby teeth and leaves it under their pillow at night, I sneak into their bedroom and replace the lost tooth with money." I wasn't buying any of that. Neither was anybody else. "How do you sneak into people's houses?" asked Neil. "I, climb in through the chimney," said the Tooth Fairy, "like Santa Claus." "Hey, would you kids like to hear a story?" "Don't you get dirty climbing through people's chimneys?" asked Ryan. "What if somebody lives in an apartment building?" asked Michael. "This is a really fun story," said the Tooth Fairy, taking out a book. "Isn't it illegal to break into people's houses without permission?" asked Alexia. I never thought about that," said the Tooth Fairy. She rubbed her forehead. "Did anyone ever call the cops on you?" I asked. "Did you ever go to jail?" "No," replied the Tooth Fairy. "I just give money to kids when their baby teeth fall out. And by the way, if your tooth is a perfect tooth, I'll give you $1. If your tooth is all decayed, I'll only give you a nickel. So take good care of your baby teeth." Everybody started buzzing, but not really, because we're not bees. "A nickel? That's it?" The Tooth Fairy is cheap. "Hey, the more teeth fall out, the more money I pay," said the Tooth Fairy. "I might as well knock all my teeth out at once," said Ryan. Ka-ching! "Look, do you kids want to hear this story or not?" asked the Tooth Fairy. I was pretty sure the Tooth Fairy was Mr. Klutz. He started to read us a picture book. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who was afraid to go to the dentist. And blah, 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 blah. That's what it sounds like when grown-ups talk. Nobody knows why. What a snooze fest. That story went on for 1,100,000 minutes. I thought I was gonna die from old age. It was about some kid who was afraid to go to the dentist. And on the last page of the story, he suddenly gets confident and he's not afraid to go to the dentist anymore. Gee, what a surprise. Like we couldn't predict that was going to happen. "Hey, I heard that Emily lost a baby tooth today," said the Tooth Fairy. "Emily, will you come up here?" Emily ran up to the front of the room. The Tooth Fairy leaned forward to give Emily $1, but that's when the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. The Tooth Fairy's long blonde hair fell off. The Tooth Fairy was completely bald. I bet you know who it was. You are Mr. Klutz, I shouted. No, I'm the Tooth Fairy, Mr. Klutz said, and then he went running out of the room. That was weird, and Mr. Klutz is nuts. But he gave me a great idea. There should be a hair fairy who sneaks around in the middle of the night giving money to men when their hair falls out. Ka-ching! If there was a hair fairy, my dad would be rich. Well, that was fun, said Dr. Floss. I have to go to another class now, but I'll see you kids later at my favorite time of the day. When is your favorite time of the day? Andrea asked. 2:30, she said. Get it? Tooth hurty? That's another dental joke. Everybody laughed, even though she didn't say anything funny. Chapter 7 is called Open Wide and Say Ah. We'll listen to that one tomorrow. See you then.